Woohoo! And we're live once again on another Tuesday. This time, I know I have my mic on because my guest can hear me. So, hey, everybody, thank you for joining us today. We got a great show lined up for you. I have a returning guest, but new to this podcast, Laura Doman. I've known her for years now and absolutely adore her. And I'm going to tell you what we're talking about, and then I'm going to have Laura introduce herself. So, we're talking about community driven publishing, being mentored by a world renowned author. So, this is an exciting show. I'm glad everybody's here, and I'm glad you're here, Laura. So, before we get stuck in, please tell people who you are and what you do.
Sure. Thank you, Gillian. By the way, you've got the best bumper music of anybody I've ever known. Love it. I'm dancing around to it. My name is Laura Doman, and I wear several hats. I am an actor, a voice actor, and I'm also a coach to business professionals who need to get better on camera themselves. Online presentations, videos, interviews, you name it. So that's a little bit about me. And as Gillian said, we've known each other for several years.
Awesome. Awesome. So, we're going to talk about today this most amazing marketing book ever, which I highly endorse. I've read, as we said before we even started today, I know like half the authors on this book. So it's like, it's a great book. Big fan. And I know that you're one of the collaborators, one of the contributors. You wrote a chapter about video and using it effectively and using it with YouTube. And it was a great chapter. You did well. And I wanted to just ask you, take us back in time, Laura, because this collaboration is different than others out there. This was based on a community. So it wasn't just, a set of people that kind of keep doing a collaborative books, on different topics. And those are out there. And, it's a way to make a book is to join up with other people. But this was different. This was different in that it was community first and then the book. So can you kind of take us back in time? I know you were part of the Rise community, and that's where you met Mark Schaefer. And can you kind of tell us how this all came to be?
Absolutely. I met Mark Schaefer actually through John Esperian because John he's a fabulous LinkedIn guru to other LinkedIn coaches. And he always talked about his mentor, Mark Schaefer. And so I was curious. And Mark had talked about how he was going to be exploring the beginnings of cryptocurrency, at least at beginnings for most of us as we heard about it, and working with specific tokens. And he had one in common called Rise. And I was very curious about it because my background was in tech. And I had tech background and finance background. And I just wanted to know what is the latest and greatest. So I went over there to take a look around and got to know some of that. And I met some of the most incredible people in there. And over time, Mark had attracted a lot of marketing gurus from around the world. And we're talking about from all different areas, from very traditional marketing like billboards to email, to those who are looking to the future with AI and the metaverse, and bringing them all together. And there was a lot of conversation, not just about this token and what can be done, but also a conversation of the future of marketing. Now, Mark is a world-renowned author and speaker. He is a futurist. He's a marketing strategist, and he is highly well-regarded. And he thinks outside of the box. In fact, he blows the box up half the time. His latest book is about being audacious. It's called Audacious. And to give Mark a plug, it's so well worth it because you see that if you're going to especially compete against AI, you do it by being human because only humans could do crazy well. Truth. At any rate, when he was running this community, the conversation was that there is so much knowledge out there among his members. And Mark said, you know what? I've written so many different books. I'd like to be able to help others who haven't yet done their first book, or maybe who would like just to work with me on a collaborative book. And that was my first experience. And I was very excited at the opportunity. So Mark said, look, I want to be able to lay it out so it's not just a book, but it is a guidebook to help people so they can use it as a reference anytime they're looking to do something a little different in social media or email or what have you. And so these are the different areas that I would like to discuss. And I'd like each of you to see if there's a chapter you can contribute. Well, I saw that there was something about YouTube and videos, and my hand went straight up because that's where I live. And I would have loved to have been part of this community. Fortunately, he took me on. And I was working with about 35 other people, including Mark, and literally everywhere around the world. We have very strict guidelines. In this book, which Gillian has a copy of, and by the way, it's now in Korean. How cool is that?
Amazing.
Everybody had a chapter of no more than 1,500 words. And to make it of value, he said, I want everybody to give their 10 best tips. But this is not going to be something that they can find just by Googling. We want to know the latest and the greatest, and we're going to make sure that this is on point. So we all took turns, submitting our chapters and having them being reviewed, because he had several people acting as editors with a lot of experience in this area. And so there were a number of iterations. And from there, then we created an audiobook. I had no trouble as a voice actor doing my chapter and offered help to everybody else. And as a community, Frank Prendergast, who is amazing with AI, and that's his thing, said, look, I'm going to create several images, and we are going to see which one we want for the cover of our book. And everybody was able to vote on them. And we got this for a number of different reasons. The funniest thing about the book, we all were writing this at the end of, I think, 2022, and it was being edited in 2023, really before ChatGPT rolled out. It was published in June of 2023. How many people said this was written by ChatGPT? This is not people. No, this is real people, real editing, and we did it before it became commonplace. So it was an interesting criticism to receive after the book came out.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome. Thank you for that whole backstory. And it's so how many people, was it everybody in the community or just 36 that were part of the book?
Well, the community has grown since then. Just to kind of give you a little history, that Meta3 community eventually disbanded because cryptocurrency rather imploded and the value didn't go down. And it was an experiment Mark was running. And he moved everybody over to Discord. And he still has a thriving community called Rise, named after the coin there. And there's so many more people there. And I honestly can't be sure. I think there were more than 35, 36 people. Not everybody wanted to contribute a chapter. Some wanted to work in the background with promotions and all that. And, I guess I just got in early. And like I said,
awesome. That's awesome. So your chapter was about video. Yep. So you had that charge from Mark that it was like, okay, this don't rehash just a blog post, so you had to kind of think out of the box. I guess that's the mentoring that's coming through with Mark, is that like, okay, don't just, same old, come up with something new. So how did you do that, Laura? What was sort of your process?
Well, I've been talking about being confident on camera and really making a difference for a few years. So I knew the core ideas were not going to change, but how you present them is a little different. And so I was bringing some more insights, especially as an actor, that most business people don't know about, and not many people even write about. And so I was bringing a perspective, combining sales with public speaking, with on-camera techniques on how to really make those videos pop, and the elements that really do stand out. So I also brought some things out that I usually save for working with private clients. And I just said, here it is, something brand new and different. Some of it might ring true, but for a lot of people, it was pretty fresh.
I love that. And I think that's kind of what makes you different than everybody else doing, camera confidence, is that you coming from this sort of theatrical background, coming from sort of the Hollywood version of making videos, but it brings a different thing, because first of all, it gives you a lot more credibility, and then kind of teaching us how to bring out that sort of actor in you, because I think I've done a lot of video in the past, and I do think that you have to kind of like step it up a little bit. So having that, I think, is really good. And I really did enjoy your chapter. I thought your chapter was really good.
Well, thank you. And, it's not just knowing how to act, because you got to be authentic. It's the watchword of the year, I believe. But it's also understanding how the camera is so different from being on stage. And those little techniques, not just about framing, but how to create a little bit of intimacy, and the fact that it's a one-to-one relationship. But the chapter was also about YouTube. which a lot of
Mm,
people had known about, had worked with. But what's really different is that even since the book has been published, YouTube has become more and more a destination for original entertainment. In fact, a lot of the streaming channels and the networks are seeing that YouTube is coming up really fast behind them because, for one thing, it's pretty much free and people are putting in full shows and a lot of original stuff.
mm, absolutely. And you're right. And, that's sort of the extra thing for anybody who's on LinkedIn watching us or listening to us on the podcast is that, we talk about doing video for social media like LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, but really YouTube is the place that it's like, first of all, it's much more Googleable, Google
Oh, yeah.
searchable. And it has a longer shelf life where if we did a video for LinkedIn, you might see it for like 24 hours and then it just kind of disappears. Whereas YouTube, because it's a search engine, it has such a longer shelf life. So I just think that's the plus of YouTube.
Absolutely. And it's a repository. So if anybody wants to see, you can organize it by playlist. So you can
Mhm.
see when you were a guest on this show, or when you created your own original content, or maybe when you interviewed other people. And as you're mentioning, not only is it number two to Google, which owns it for search, but AI is using a lot of those long tail descriptive keywords, which you can put in your captions, your descriptions, everywhere. And I wouldn't be
Mm.
surprised, it won't be before long, that they're able to actually capture some of the dialogue in the video itself, maybe through a transcription you provide, and allow people to find you better that way.
That's true. That's true. So going back to the book, you came at it with your own personal experience and your insights. You wrote your chapter, and then where did Mark come in? Did he review every chapter? Did he just delegate to editors? How did he kind of mentor you all?
Oh, Mark was very much involved with it because he knows, and what he taught everybody was it has to be something new and different. If he's going to put his name on it, and his name is right there, Mark Schaefer and Friends, he's got to be proud of it. And therefore, he did look through and read everything. He had editors working on the grammar and the structure and all that, but he was very specific about what he wanted. And the same thing came true with everything else. And what really was of value to somebody like me who had never been through this process before is that he brought his whole marketing machine with him. He had people who were ready to publish it, who he had the audio editors. And the audio engineers really had a bit of a time because if you know anything about recording, you are going to have a problem if everybody's doing it a little differently. You might have somebody who's a voice actor like me working in a professional studio and the sound quality is there. Other people are trying to record in their closets. Maybe somebody
Mm.
used a car, which, by the way, is not a bad place to record, or they created something makeshift, or they didn't have, they had different types of microphones. And he worked with somebody who went to great lengths to make sure that it pretty much sounded even. And
Mm.
then he also had people, and he was able to guide it towards coming out in the Kindle version, and then to have it distributed around the world. And he took care of all the collection and the payments. And yes, he had people working with him, but he was very much involved because his name was on the book and he took a lot of personal pride in it. Afterwards, I think it was right around my birthday, it might have been on my birthday a couple of years ago, we had a big celebration at his house. And he brought in as many people who could fly in from around the world to be there as possible. And it was incredible. Not only was he and his wife's wonderful hosts, but we got to meet everybody in person, where before these are our co-authors, and we may never have ever seen each other face to face. And we got to see Mark face to face, and a friendship developed. And that in turn not only helped propel the book and all of our marketing efforts, because we really got to know each other, but afterwards in the Discord community, people have now become a lot of close friends with each
Mm.
other. They're getting involved with a lot of Mark's programs. It's just been a fabulous, I don't even want to say networking because that doesn't do it justice, but a real community and just a fantastic experience. In many ways, I feel like I'm a little bit on the periphery because I am not marketing per se. I'm an actor
Right.
and I'm helping people get better on video, but I got a finance, marketing, sales background. And I try to bring a lot of that in there. but the quality of the people there, it's just been mind-blowing. And getting to know Mark, of course, and having somebody who could shepherd us all through this was just astounding.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And the very fact that you all got to meet, or as many as you could as possible, that's awesome. Like, what, talk about the cherry on top of the, butterscotch sundae or something. That sounds absolutely awesome, because I think there is something about when you actually get to meet people in person. So, how brilliant is that? I never knew that before. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, my pleasure. I mean, I even brought my husband. We made a little bit of a trip. It was within driving distance, but he had never met any of these people. He wasn't even sure really what I do. And he was just blown away. He said, "These people are incredible. When can we see them again?" It's like, well, we'll have to talk to Mark.
I love that. I love that. Okay, I'm going to hop over to the comments for a bit, and then when we're done with the comments, I want to talk more about the audiobook. So, get your tips and all sorts of great stuff. So, okay, let's see. Hopefully we're good today with, yes, we are. Okay, so Jeff is gone from YouTube, and he always tells me, YouTube land, we're coming in loud and clear, front row of YouTube. And David Cos is here. He says, "Good afternoon, ladies. Looking forward to the wisdom." I'm hoping you're taking it all in today, David, because there's some good stuff coming out loud and clear, including the smiles. How sweet is that? That is awesome. That is awesome. And he says, what a valued foundation for a book. Wow. It really is. It's kind of like you could write a book about the book, to be honest with you. So I don't know if anybody's sitting there listening from, the most amazing marketing book ever. It's like, it should be like exposed or behind the scenes, not exposed. That sounds negative, but you know what I'm saying? It's really an amazing story. So Debbie says, "What a wonderful collaborative effort, Laura. I love your tips about be a storyteller, not a presenter. And of course, being consistent." Yes,
Thanks, Debbie.
absolutely. Absolutely. So here's my question about the audiobook. So this is something I know not of. I have not done an audiobook myself yet. I want to know, number one, where in the process did you do the audiobook? Did you wait till it had launched, or did you do it as you were preparing for the launch? So that's my first question. And then the follow-up is, how did you guys organize that with so many different authors? So
Okay.
double question.
Okay. Well, first of all, let's just take the timeline. The first thing, of course, was to be able to present what we were going to do, write the chapters, and have them edited so they were in final form. And we all had deadlines to meet. After they were all approved, then it was time, while that was being forwarded for publishing, to prepare for the audiobook section. And the idea was that every author would be using their own voice to be able to describe and read their own work. And so we were literally reading our own chapters verbatim. And that happened, if I'm trying to remember correctly, I think all the manuscripts, everything had to be finalized. It was January, February. I think there were a few stragglers, maybe even early March. But then March, and I believe it was April. This was 2 years ago, so forgive me if my memory isn't quite right. And we were recording it, and then we had to deliver the audio files to the audio engineer. And there was a lot of conversation and a little concern up front. What do we do? We've never done this before. Some of us have, others have not. How do we get started? And so there was a lot of hand-holding and helping, and some people went to professional recording studios. Other people were able to do it on their own, and others, I think, just helped anybody who happened to be in the vicinity. So the audiobook then was pretty much recorded and then sent off within a couple of months. And as far as the Kindle version, we didn't have to do much. So the active effort really felt like it was about 6 months in the creation. And I'm, again, just pulling it out of the air. I'm going to say probably like from October through April, where we came up with the chapters, wrote them, edited, everything approved to doing the audiobook. And then the promotion began in May. And we all did a lot of heavy duty promotion, not just individually, but as a group.
Yes. And, we could talk a mile on the promotion, because you did live streaming and all sorts of amazing things. So with the audiobook, can you give any tips to authors if you have an amazing voice, you have a studio, you're an actor, you voice actor, regular actor. what would someone like me, what would you tell me if I didn't have access to a studio? What would you recommend?
Okay, I'm going to run down a bunch of things. So if anybody is listening, get your pen, paper, or start typing as fast as you can. Number one, the sound quality is extremely important. The best thing you can do is to get a nice, quiet space. Ideally, you're not going to be surrounded by a lot of wood like I have, unless you're in a treated area. If you don't have a space, the reason a closet is mentioned so often is because those clothes act as a good sound dampener. If you need to, you can get yourself into a little closet with clothes just about everywhere hanging around, put a rug on the floor. That way, the sound won't be bouncing off against any hard surfaces like wood. Sound is the most important thing. And I wasn't kidding sometimes about using a car. As long as you're not around traffic or anything, it can also be a very quiet environment. There are a lot of ways of treating a space, but sound is number one. Number two, use your natural voice. You don't have to push into the mic. You don't have to present. People just want to hear you speak naturally. And if you and once in a while with those verbal fillers, it's okay. They can be removed. And once in a while, it just reminds people that you're human. Number three, don't be afraid of making mistakes. The nice thing about recording is that it can always be fixed in post. So do the best, and also know that if you make a mistake, go back to the beginning of a previous section or sentence, leave a little break so you or somebody else can edit out the mistake, and then start again. Get back into the flow. You also want to be drinking plenty of H2O. The best thing you could do to talk about anything is to have a lot of water. Hydrate with water, stay away from caffeine, and start doing so an hour or two beforehand. You'll find it much easier. I also guide clients for another tip is to relax the body so you're not all hunched up and tight, because your words will flow when you're physically comfortable. Even if that means neck rolls and shoulders up and down and making funny faces and doing some vocal warm-ups like la 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 la, whatever it is, that's going to get your instrument tuned. Another tip is to speak as if you're talking just to one person, because whether you're going to be doing something on video, on live TV or video like this, or if you're going to be speaking for someone to listen later, it's really going to be a one-to-one experience. You're not necessarily talking to a whole group of people. You're talking to an individual because it's an individual reception of what you're trying to say. And you're usually watching something on screen or listening to something all by yourself. So imagine you're talking to a friend. If it helps, put a picture of somebody friendly right up there next to the mic. Which brings me then, I guess, to your equipment. If you're going to be getting a mic and you're not doing it very often, yeah, you can use an USB mic. If you're doing something really quick and easy, maybe for video, you can even use the sound coming from your computer. If you want to get more serious, you're going to want to get an external mic with a preamp. I can tell you more about what you need later on. And there's other equipment that you might require. If you're going to edit, you're going to want to have some basic editing software. As a professional voice actor, I use Adobe Audition, but there are others that are out there. And so there's a whole choice. But one thing I want to mention, and Debbie alluded to it in her comment, whatever you're doing, whether it's a narrative or you're going to be putting on a voice and doing a character, be a storyteller. Build that image in people's minds. Have fun with it. Enjoy. Live in that story. And then it will come along and spark a flame in somebody else's mind, because we all ultimately think in terms of pictures, and stories are the best way for those pictures to get through and affect the emotions. Because if you really want to affect your audience, whether you're in person, in a Zoom call, live stream, whatever, or an audiobook, you're going to touch somebody's feelings. You're going to get them right here. Even in the most intellectual copy, it's got to mean something to them. And when you really relax, enjoy it, and talk as if you're speaking to somebody who really wants to hear it, it's going to come out and be that much more effective. All right, I think I'm off my soapbox.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Those are fabulous tips. I absolutely love them. So thank you so much. And I would highly recommend, if anybody's thinking about doing an audiobook, to kind of check you out and get some help, because it sounds good. Was there anybody that in the project that wasn't able to do theirs and had to kind of like farm them, have somebody else do it? I guess it was before the AI narration came out, because that's like a big thing now.
Oh,
So
yeah. Oh, don't get me
was
started.
everybody able to do it?
Yeah, first of all, don't get me started about AI narration. It's fine if you want to listen to robotic voice for a long time, but there was there were a lot of people who, I can handle this, not a big deal, because there were a lot of very professional speakers in the group. But there were others who were just very, very worried about it and didn't know how to get started. So they either took the assistance and ideas and suggestions of others, they went to somebody else who might have had a facility, or they went to a professional recording studio. But eventually, everybody was able to do it. Now, yes, there were some parts of some people's speeches or some folks who needed to do it more than once because it just wasn't coming out properly. But in the end, everybody did it, and it turned out to be a great product.
Awesome. Awesome. So then at the beginning, you had shown the book in Korean. So what's that? How did that happen?
Oh, isn't that incredible? Yeah, the book, I'll put one on either side. Isn't that how they do it on the TV shows? And a big
Right.
smile. It has been published around the world. And we were asked, would you like to have a copy of the Korean version? Yeah, definitely would. And it is amazing because I had to use my phone in the Google Translate because it is. I don't know if anybody here reads Korean. I don't. All in Korean, and even seeing my name in Korean. And some of the words, of course, are different because it's not exact word to word translation, but the ideas came through. And it's just amazing. I loved it.
Wow.
So I've got my English book here, and we had people who were just writing all kinds at our party. Where is it? People are just signing their chapters and everything else. But this one's still pristine because, like I said, I don't read Korean.
I love that. I love that. So is there plans for other languages, like maybe Spanish? I'm thinking Spanish is
There might be.
huge.
I'm not sure. I would have to ask Mark and see what's what. But yeah, it would be kind of fun. Get a collection from around the world.
Awesome. Awesome. So we're almost getting sort of towards the end of the show. So can you kind of tell us what's next for you in the book realm, in
Okay.
terms of upcoming projects, short term, long term, whatever?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. This experience and now knowing you, Jillian, means that when I got some time, I got a book or two to write, and now I don't feel so scared about doing it. But I was mentioning to this a little bit earlier. This was the funniest thing this morning. I just got a LinkedIn direct message from Jan Yeager. She's a sociologist who's written over 60 books. And she just told me that the book that she had mostly recently written about time management, I'm in it. Because about a month ago, I went to visit my daughter, who has a semester abroad in Europe, living in Madrid, and she always wanted a trip to Paris. And I always went, yeah, right. Well, this made sense. We had a mother-daughter trip, first a little in Madrid, then in Paris. In other words, it was a 20-year-old Energizer Bunnies trip with her mom being dragged along, and we did 2 weeks worth of stuff in 1 week and had a great time. Talk about bonding. And while I was waiting for the plane to take off to go back to the States, I was writing a LinkedIn post about it. Nothing much, just saying how wonderful it was. And it struck me how much Europeans sit and talk in cafes with their friends. They're not having their faces buried in the phones like we do over here. And what a difference that made. Well, Jan saw it and said, I'm writing a book about relationships and time management. Can I include your LinkedIn post in there? Yeah. She even put my dorky picture of me saying, oh, look, the Mona Lisa. Ugh, that's in there too. And in fact, this morning she just said, the book is out. You're on pages this to that. And there I was. And I thought, how cool. And she did mention the most amazing marketing book, which once again to promote it is here and in Korean. So I guess that'd be my latest book project. Other than that, if I'm going to be narrating anything, never know.
Awesome. Awesome. And I love that because it's such a great example of sometimes we feel, oh, who cares about my post? But and some people, they'll write it and delete it or something, or they start to write it and they don't write it or whatever. But sometimes when we just kind of say, I wonder if I should just share this, and they just go out and put it out there. You just never know the ripples. To me, it's like throwing a pebble in the water. It can ripple out. And the very fact that like you could write a post and now somebody's taken that post and put it in their book and your picture and everything. I think it's absolutely brilliant.
And I heard from her by the time I touched down in Atlanta. It's like, oh my gosh, that was fast. Because sometimes you feel with the algorithm, nobody's going to ever see anything. Why am I doing this? But then something like that, or you write one post that touches people, all of a sudden they all come out of the woodwork. So I would definitely say, like Julian mentioned, if you've got something to say it, because it will be meaningful to somebody. It will touch someone, and you just never know, which is the fun and the beauty of this whole thing.
I love that. I love that. And how wonderful too that she's including the most amazing marketing book
I
ever.
know.
So it's like
Janet,
we've kind of come full circle.
got a shout out, Time Masters.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So we've come to the end of our 30 minutes. Always goes so fast. I really appreciate you being here today, Laura, and sharing your insights and sharing the whole journey that you had. It's wonderful and inspiring. And like I said, somebody needs to go write the book about the book, because this is a fabulous story. And to even have all 36 of you give your perspectives of writing on the book.
Oh,
Shout out to Mark Schaefer. What a good idea that would be for a follow-up. But anyways, thank you for being here. And the best way for people to get in touch with you is?
my website, lauradoman.com.
Awesome. Awesome.
We're on LinkedIn.
Okay. Or LinkedIn or YouTube. Go to YouTube.
Or YouTube. I'm everywhere.
I love it. I love it. Okay. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you, everybody who joined us. And we will see you back here next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.